Hello, and welcome to Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I'm your co-host, Ryan Saylor.
And I am your other co-host, Annie Morell. And this week, Fellini goes nautical with And the Ship Sails On. Here's a clip. Once again, that was from And the Ship Sails On, a film that you described via another person's review.
Yeah, I don't want to take credit. That was someone on Letterboxd.
Someone on Letterboxd called it Fellini doing a Muppets movie without Muppets. And so that colored my viewing of this for sure. In a positive way, I think. I have no idea if this is something you liked or not. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, well, up front, we are a full spoiler podcast, and that will matter this week. Most of the film, I would say, you're fine, and then right at the end, there's a lot of stuff.
I'll tell you the biggest spoiler right now, so stop listening. The ship does not sail on.
Well, even that, I think, is part of the metaphor.
Sure.
I think the world's still gonna move on regardless of what happens. But yes, the ship.
The literal ship.
does not make it. The literal ship does not make it. Yeah, so my initial thoughts, I spent a lot of this film liking it, but kind of kept at a distance. I enjoyed the farcical nature of it. I mean, actually, the very first sequence, whatever, with the period accurate intertitles and
silent movie.
Yeah, I mean the loud projector going, which I don't think you would have even noticed in the 80s when they still would have been projecting this film, but it's burned into the film.
Yeah, you can hear
now you can see that.
The sounds. Yeah.
All of that, and then it fading into color. I was in love. The opening of this, I think, is just absolutely brilliant. And then you get quite a while where you spend time with these characters. They're all upper class people that are mourning their friend that has died. And we kind of get something in the spirit of the rules of the game, where we know we're on the cusp of a world war. In this case, World War I, instead of the rules of the game is World War II. And we're staying with rich upper class people as they argue their issues while there are much bigger things afoot. And the film kind of evolves from there, and sometimes it's more silly, sometimes it's more serious, and I just couldn't quite get a grasp on it. I spent a lot of it unsure of, how to receive the film, if it wanted me to take things more seriously or just kind of embrace the farce. And it wasn't until the final sequence of the film that everything really clicked for me. And I could kind of see more of what Fellini was really going for with the whole thing. So that's a lot of initial thoughts, but that's kind of where I was at while watching the film. I think the Muppets comment probably didn't help me.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say, because this does exist in a weird in-between. And I actually think I'd be willing to bet money that Wes Anderson has seen this at some point, because it actually feels not in style, but in tone management and progression like a Wes Anderson film. Particularly something like Royal Tenenbaums, I felt a lot during this film.
Yeah, that has a lot of darkness in it, like this does. I would agree with that. James Cameron, too, am I right? I did just watch Titanic for the first time, and so the whole end of this, I was like,
This one's much more about showing you the artifice that Titanic tries to immerse you.
Yeah, absolutely. But there were definitely like shots that I was like, this is exactly like Titanic.
Yeah. And the singing while it's going down.
The singing while it's going down, the hallways of the fancy cabins, and everything that's super fancy getting waterlogged and thrown about.
Mm-hmm.
Even the one fan of hers that was like maybe in love with her, but maybe was also just doing it for money, but did seem genuinely in love with her by the end, because he's like in his cabin watching old footage of her and crying as the room fills with water.
Yeah.
That reminded me also of Titanic. There are the rich people who are like in their beds going down with the ship. So anyway, obviously so very different as an actual film, but some of the visuals and like circumstances,
sure,
I saw some similarities. So did want to genuinely point that out. But I agree that the tone of this was all over the place. I don't know if I can name why it worked better for me than it sounds like it did for you. It starts out, you know, as you were talking about, with this kind of whimsical silent movie opening, but then it starts to get a little serious when you realize like, oh, a funeral is happening of some kind, a very fancy, elaborate funeral. And then, yeah, we kind of get to know the people and this narrator, and that is really light. And I didn't mind that kind of ebb and flow of seriousness to lightness, and the mix of darkness and absurdity did really work for me for the most part. But I was surprised, especially when we get the really dark turn when the Serbian refugees show up, which I know we'll get way more into because it's kind of the biggest thing that happens plot-wise.
Sure.
But yeah, I wasn't mad about it. I was kind of pleasantly surprised that I kind of thought we were in for a straight farce, and I'm glad that it was a little more complex than that.
Yeah. Like, regardless of how much I end up recommending this film, there is undeniable craft here. It's very impressive. The absurd, large-scale sets and artifice that he's worked on in previous films. Maybe we're not quite at Satyricon, but this is definitely the one film that would rival it.
Yeah.
And especially toward the end when these sets all get destroyed on camera.
Mm-hmm. And then the reveal of how it was all being done was...
He's so proud of it.
I know.
He's
I was like,
literally,
this doesn't need to be in here, Fellini. This is just because you want to be like, look how I did this. Isn't this neat?
I actually really appreciate that element. I feel like that was almost him keeping himself in check. There's an alternate version of this film that is a docudrama, and we watch Fellini film the events of the ship or whatever, but instead we do get this fourth wall breaking narrator, but he's great. He's kind of similar to the lawyer from Amarcord. And Fellini restrains himself to just showing up at the end to be like, hey, I am here.
I never left. I also liked the journalist narrator character, Orlando, who has the most American sounding name and was definitely speaking English throughout this, but of course it is dubbed. His name is Freddie Jones, and yeah, I could read his lips really well.
I did see that there actually is an English dub of this, but unlike Casanova, it doesn't seem like it's considered like an equal version of the film. So I watched it in Italian. I wasn't sure what to do with it, but there is an English dub that Fellini did work on, but I don't know.
I was wondering if that might be the case for this one. Yeah, because of the fact that one of the main characters is speaking English, just like Casanova. But I just watched it on Criterion Channel, so they had the Italian version, so that's the version that I watched.
Yeah, I finally got to bust open my box set again this week. There have been a lot of films that weren't in the set, but this one was in there, so watched it on disc.
Nice. Yeah, I was very happy to see that it was on the channel, so I didn't have to take extraordinary measures to find it.
The ship didn't have to sail on, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As always, Criterion, sponsor us. We're still here.
We have an email. we just do it now. Just do the credits right now.
Yeah, if you agree or just... I'm just kidding.
It's the whole thing. No, I have a lot that I want to address.
Oh, sure.
In this. Yeah, I loved the subtle switch to color. I felt like this was a lot more of an effective love letter to music than orchestra rehearsal. We talked about our issues with that.
Yeah.
Obviously different because it's not about an orchestra. It's about like an opera company, essentially. But the music in this is gorgeous. Whoever is dubbing these actors, I think a couple of them might actually be opera singers, based on how they were posturing.
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous. It's a lot of, really recognizable classical music. I heard like Nutcracker Suite, Clair de Lune is super prominent. They played at the end, I'm pretty sure, as well. Carnival des Animaux, like very recognizable, not original music, which I did think about our conversation from last week about how, last week was his first film without Nino Rota, and this is the second one, and this also didn't really have that much original music in it. It definitely had it, and I thought it was good. I didn't look up who did the score, but once again, I see him maybe not trusting anyone else quite still to score his work.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're ever going to get a proper score again, which if we don't, understandable.
A lot of silence in this too, or like silently scored.
The composer this week was Gianfranco Planizio.
Okay. Who's he? What's he done?
Not much. I don't recognize most of his other films. He did one of the Django sequels.
Cool. The whole reason that these people are gathered is because they all have a relationship of some kind to this dead woman who is, according to a lot of them, perhaps the greatest singer of all time. The way they talk about her voice, often in front of the soprano that's there to sing at her funeral. I did like that whole element. Just every time she'd be around, people being like, there's just no one else who's better than Edmea, I believe is her name. Edmea Tetua. And she's just kind of silently like looking forward, like, So it is ostensibly about the music, but it becomes about the rise of war and fascism again.
Yeah.
Just, another instance where Fellini's like looking around like, oh, I've seen this one before. But we get a lot more, in my opinion, the most political commentary that we've seen yet. The kind of class commentary is rampant throughout this because, it's just, as you said, these rich people and their little problems as a really big problem is happening around them
on the literal horizon.
On the literal horizon, yeah. And their only concern once the problem starts to invade their space, once the refugees are on the ship, is like, this is disrupting my daily life. And I just don't want to see it. Like, I don't care that it's happening. I just want you to literally close the curtain on these people so I don't have to see it.
Right.
And I mean, they wanted them ideally to be off the ship because that's their kind of little bubble. And they don't want any trouble. They don't want the poor.
Annie and I talked about with orchestra rehearsal that it seemed like Fellini was kind of warning against the return of fascism or what that might look like. And so we did just a tiny bit of research leading into this week because it's like, well, clearly this is on his mind. And so in the years 68 to 88, which this film is in the midst of, in Italy, it's called the Years of Lead. And it's a period in Italy where the country kind of didn't know if it wanted to lean right or left. And so the parties ended up being far right and far left and committing terrorist acts on each other. I guess not the parties themselves, but people interested in the parties. And you could read all about who was where and why. It's an international event. But knowing that that's going on, you can see a lot of those concerns in this film, down to eventually the terrorist attack at the end of this, or the alleged, the inside job, so to speak. I don't remember how they word it, but he does say, there's a chance that maybe they just did this themselves as an excuse. And so I think those kind of things are probably colored by what was going on in Italy at the time. Yeah,
even the kind of weird faux assassination plot that appears to be happening that we slowly learn about. So there's this Austro-Hungarian Grand Duke on the ship. He's apparently a big fan of this lady as well. And his sister, who's like the princess, and next in line, is also there. And then she has a crony who's like a count or something, who they appear to be scheming to kill her brother, but then she has him arrested. So it's clearly like her trying to root out naysayers against her brother, like within their administration, I guess.
Another thing, so Fellini actually did write about his involvement with this film. He actually did a lot of behind the scenes footage as well, and some of that makes it into the film. So it's a little meandering, but I did want to read just something that kind of also points to what he was thinking about with the film, apolitically, just on the romantic side, on the operatic side. There's more writing, you can look it up, but I'm going to read just a little bit from that.
Okay.
So he says, "And the ship sails on has a great deal to do with opera, a subject I would have avoided in my earlier pictures. It was only in later life that I came to appreciate our Italian operatic tradition. I suppose the reason I said and wrote so much about not liking opera is because every Italian is supposed to love opera, especially every Italian man. My brother Riccardo went around the house singing. Love of opera isn't restricted to Italy, of course, but it's more widespread here than in America. All my life, I've had a natural resistance to whatever everyone likes or wants or is supposed to do. I never was interested in soccer, either to play or to watch, and for a man to admit that in Italy is almost like admitting that you aren't a man at all. I do not like to belong to political parties or to clubs. Partly this is probably in my black sheep nature, but I think another very real reason is I remember the black shirts. I was a child in a time when we wore the outfits of our school, or we wore the black shirts of fascism, and were supposed to question nothing. That has made me question everything. I was always suspicious, not wanting to be one of the sheep going to slaughter. So sometimes I may have missed out on a pleasure the sheep enjoyed, which I could have had without becoming a lamb chop. Now I have developed a late interest in opera, but it's difficult to admit you had an interest in a subject in which you have vehemently denied having any interest in for so long. I have not seen the film since it was finished, but I do wonder how it would seem now in light of what's happening in Yugoslavia. Would it seem too light, too dated, or would it speak to audiences more clearly? That rhinoceros is a distant cousin of the sick zebra I helped to wash when I was a boy and the circus came to Rimini. My theory about why the zebra was sick is that he didn't have any sex in his life. How could he feel well? There was, after all, only one zebra in that circus. The rhinoceros is lovesick. Only one rhinoceros is the same as only one zebra."
Whoa.
Right? It's a bit, jumping around. But I think there's just so much there that reveals this film. I mean, obviously he was speaking to current events for the 90s, I think is when this was written. But yeah, I mean, you could apply that to, what's going on now with Palestine or any kind of turmoil.
Yeah, I think maybe the rhinoceros is a good place to start. It is one of my favorite elements of the film. Essentially, we get introduced at one point when there's this kind of tour. The rich people are getting a sort of tour of the underbelly of the ship, and they come upon a room that has one very sick-looking rhinoceros who has not eaten since he got on the ship, and his very sad caretaker who's really worried about him, trying to get him to eat. This was the first gut punch where I was like, oh, this isn't funny. I don't like this. And they eventually bring the rhinoceros out up on deck because the doctor says he needs fresh air. But yeah, is it his caretaker that says he's lovesick? Who actually says that he's lovesick?
Yeah, I think it's the person feeding him. Or her, I guess, by the end of the film, we learn.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Wow. I need to examine something within myself, clearly. All rhinos are boys, I'm pretty sure. All hippos are girls.
Well, there are so many animals, this is so off topic, but there are so many animals that the males have horns, so I thought that was a rhino thing, but that's not true. I looked it up after, and both male and female rhinos have horns.
Like goats. Goats are the same way.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Learning 2 things today.
Wow. But yeah, it's this whole kind of, again, sad to me at least, scene where they airlift this rhino and the reason is not like, oh, the rhino is unhappy, this is why we're doing it. It's literally because the rhino is inconveniencing the passengers because she's stinky. That's the only reason why they're even doing anything about it, which I think that's a theme throughout, that things only get done when the rich are bothered by them or affected by them in some way. and then totally disappears. Like, well, they say, are they going to dump it in the ocean? And someone else says, no, they're putting it on a lifeboat. And then enough time goes by that I think most audience members, or at least me, I forgot about it completely. Because a lot more stuff happens in between that and the next time and final time we see the rhino, which is in the lifeboat with the narrator at the end, because he has escaped onto the lifeboat that already contained the rhino, and he's drinking her milk to stay alive. Very resourceful. Yeah, thoughts?
Well, if it is a metaphor for something like society, because that has typically been where Fellini has done these animal metaphors in the past, I thought about the end of La Dolce Vita. Obviously, this is a real animal as opposed to a gelatinous blob from that movie. Then I think there's hope at the end, because this rhino goes from being sick and, lovesick in particular, stinking up the ship, moved not of its own accord, but not even having the strength to move, just being hauled around, to producing milk at the end of the film. And in real life, obviously, milk would mean that the rhino has children. I don't know that we see that here. But the other part of that is that sex has occurred, because that's spoilers. That's how babies. I won't know.
Wow. We're educating the masses today.
I know. But I think that is the important part of the metaphor, because the rhino goes from lovesick to having had sex. But I think it's saying that, you can come back from loneliness and lovesickness and make something beautiful and helpful and keep each other alive.
It's not a terminal disease.
Yeah, but in the macrocosm, on the societal level.
Nothing is a lost cause. We can almost always come back. I like that a lot. Italy's kind of like a rhino, am I right?
I mean, I think that's what he's going for.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that he does set this at the cusp of World War I, and obviously Italy's going to keep going into turmoil long into World War II and in post-war. So there's an irony there. He's saying there's hope, but also there's a dramatic irony that we know that Italy's about to face its darkest days. So yeah, a lot going on.
I did like the line when they're initially talking about how the rhino is lovesick. Love is debilitating. Good stuff, Fellini. We talked about a little bit how it's not docufiction, but there is a narrator and there are a lot of acknowledgments to the camera. Like, everyone is aware. There's the actual camera that is actually filming this, but then it's also the, I guess, silent film camera that is filming the journalist as he's trying to document this. Some character gives like a Jim Halpert camera look at one point.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And yeah, it is clear that everyone is aware that they are being filmed, which I thought was an interesting element. I also really liked just talking about like camera work. The actual, I guess it's not a camera effect. I thought it was until the reveal at the end. The kind of ship rocking, and it's very subtle in a lot of the scenes, but it definitely is there.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently the sets were on a big motorized platform and actually moving around, which I think is really, I like seeing Fellini leaning into more immersive tactics for his actors. Because I do think in the past, like especially his early work, where like often the actors, and in this case, some of the actors, it's like their film debut. But in his early work, a lot of the actors weren't necessarily even actors. And it was a lot of him just being like, you do this, and then I'll dub you this way. And there's this, I was reading that he insisted that all the food, because there's this really big, elaborate banquet hall scene, or a couple of scenes where they're all eating in this big banquet hall, and there's a point where one of the rich ladies white saviors the Serbians and like gives them some cake and food from the inside. But anyway, he insisted that all of that food was as high quality and kind of ritzy as it was supposed to appear to be in the film, so that it further immersed the actors. And the one other bit of trivia on this subject is there's a scene where it's the weird husband and wife duo, and the husband is like maybe being cucked, but they kind of have a scene at night in her bedroom and she has a stuffed bear. That is the actress's actual stuffed bear from when she was a child, because Fellini wanted her to have something that would carry real emotion for her, for that kind of, one of the more intense scenes. I like seeing that as a performer myself. I think it's cool when directors do stuff like that, because I do think it more often than not results in better performances, more realistic, heartfelt feeling performances.
Similar but different. I think just on the idea of him kind of trying new things and new techniques and not stagnating as he enters his last couple films. I mean, we're down to 4 at this point, including this one. I mean, the editing in this one was so experimental at times, even like to modern sensibilities. There's this sequence right toward the end where the two young lovers are sitting together, and we shift to like a handheld camera, and it's like cutting from all sides and all angles, just rapid fire. There are like missing frames throughout the film also, I think, in the spirit of like a silent film. So yeah, there's some really cool stuff here that I'd never seen from him before.
Yeah, I do think maybe that's one of the reasons why he's one of the greats, is even when you have this incredible reputation that he has at this stage, and even many movies back at this point, he already had this great reputation and this great set of skills. And you don't see him just kind of resting on his laurels. There's always something that he's trying that's new, and sometimes it doesn't work. We've talked about those times, but I admire the heck out of that. That's something like we've referenced Wes Anderson here and there throughout this Fellini series, and not to say that he doesn't ever try anything new, but I think that's like where I'm at personally with his career, where I'm like, yeah, I get that you're really good at this, and I want to see something different. You can still have your style, and I think that's what Fellini is so great at. It still feels like a Fellini film, unmistakably, but there's new stuff that he's never done before that is expanding the definition, I guess, of a Fellini film.
I think we should spend some time talking about what is in the lighter part of the film.
Oh, sure.
We get some new performances.
Yes!
Put them on the list.
My favorite was the singing glasses.
Yeah.
I think it's something most people are familiar with, where you fill a glass with a certain amount of water and tracing the rim makes a pretty sound. And it's, a whole orchestra worth of singing glasses.
People keep joining.
If people keep joining, there's someone blowing on bottles. It was great. I was captivated. I was like, I don't know if this really needs to be there. I think it is a nice moment as well. One of the rare moments where we see class kind of dissolve, the class structure momentarily dissolve, because the scene is taking place in the kitchen. So obviously they're the cooks that run the kitchen, but then it's a couple of the conductors and a couple other like opera people. The upper class folks are there too, and they're all taking part in creating this collective sound, and it's beautiful. And that sits in stark contrast to the rest of the film, which is a lot of, I think the best contrast to that specific scene is when they're in the boiler room, when the tour is being given, and some of the opera singers are up, literally up high, compared to the workers in the boiler room who are down working on the boiler, and they're all dirty and sweaty, and there's these beautiful people in their rich clothes, and they ask for the singers to sing, or one specific singer, the soprano, to sing for them, and she's kind of like, no. And then it kind of becomes a competition where she does eventually sing, because all the other people start to kind of sing and outdo each other. But it's for them.
Right.
Like they're doing it for each other and not for the boiler room workers. I loved that glass scene, but there are other performances as well.
Yeah, the other shout out, or the other standout performance, we get a man that hits, so, if you hit a high enough note, glass breaks, allegedly, or just the right sympathetic frequency, I think is the idea. Apparently, if you hit a low enough note, you can hypnotize a chicken.
Into freezing.
Into
becoming a stuffed chicken.
Into falling asleep standing up. And you might even cause some passerbys to pass out as well.
Yeah.
You don't know your own power. But yeah, this scene's hilarious. He says, I need a hen right now. And I felt it coming. I was like, all right, what are we going to see?
I thought he was going to explode the chicken. I was waiting for it to explode.
With his voice still, or?
Yeah, like a Fiona from Shrek situation.
Yeah, so he kind of clears the space for the hen, puts the hen down, and then just starts tuning down lower and lower until eventually this chicken is hypnotized and asleep, standing up.
Yeah, and then Orlando passes out. He's the one who is also susceptible to this. And I do think there's a lot of putting him in his place class-wise. Like, he's kind of in between. He's kind of middle class, I would say. Much like the sailors. I think the sailors and the kind of the captain even, those are all like solidly the middle class in this class structure. And Orlando tries so hard to get an interview with the Grand Duke, and that's a whole debacle and really funny scene. And when the Serbians are like, what's going to happen to us? Like, are the Austrians going to take us? He's like, I'll handle it. And then he tries to go up to the captain and be like, Captain, I need to speak to you. And the captain just ignores him. And then he's like, tries again. And the captain just goes into his office and he's like, I'm working on it. So yeah, I liked that he is basically compared to a chicken.
Yeah.
In that moment, because he definitely thinks that he's a little more important than he actually is. We get an inkling of the interpersonal stuff that's happening between a lot of the passengers. I think the one that I was most interested in, and also the actor who was most Muppet-like, was the like gay guy. Do you know who I'm talking about? It's like a young man and his mother, and he keeps staring at the muscular sailors. And she's clearly like, hey, you're making a scene. That one I was like, you know what? That's a fair interpersonal dispute. That seems hard. In the 1910s, hard to be a gay man on a ship staring at muscly sailors.
Sure.
Oh, the only other thing before we get to the refugees, we get yet another, it's not quite to the level of like clowns or little variety acts for Fellini, but we do get another seance in this film. And, you know, we've seen a couple. There's one in La Dolce Vita, there's one in Juliet of the Spirits. I think maybe there's one more I'm not remembering, but some of the rich people hold a seance to try to summon Edmea, the dead singer, and ask her questions. And then we get her ghost coming in, except it's not her ghost. It's her like biggest fan, the flower guy, the guy who would send her a rare flower all the time, who has all the film of her and a bunch of her costumes. It's revealed to be him because he's really upset that they're trying to summon her. So he's trying to scare them by pretending to be her ghost. A great sequence. I'm not sure how it fits into the rest of the film, really. Yeah, other than, I guess, expanding that guy's backstory a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of those earlier interactions in the film, I guess that one's about halfway through, but are all just vignette-y kind of character-driven scenes. And so I think that's just another one of those.
But moving on to the main conflict of the film, all of a sudden, and I like how they do kind of just appear, at least to the audience and to these rich people. It's like, oh, all of a sudden they're on the ship because this happened in the night. This ship has come upon these Serbian refugees who are trying to flee from Austria. And immediately, all the rich people are against them staying. They also don't understand them, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a huge language barrier.
Yeah, huge language barrier. And I liked the kind of thread from that moment to when they can't understand the zookeeper, the guy who's taking care of the rhino. That happens earlier. And then we get this whole group of people who they can't understand. And yeah, there's the scene that I mentioned earlier in the dining room where all the refugees are right up against the dining room windows watching these people in their excess, and watching these people not be able to enjoy their excess because they're being watched. They have no, they don't pull the curtains. They have the curtains pulled by some of the servers.
Yeah, some of them are against the idea. But I actually think there's a couple there's some extra stuff going on here because we have one guy that really likes looking at the refugees, but it's because he has a crush on this girl.
He's fetishizing.
Yeah, exactly. There's commentary there. This woman that wants to give her food, but it's specifically cake, which I think is a very specific reference when you're giving food to the poor.
Marie Antoinette.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of additional great moments besides the brilliant visual metaphor of just literally closing the curtains.
Yes.
There are these other things going on that I liked as well.
Yeah, they are initially, I've been using the term refugees, and they are explained to be refugees to these people, but immediately people start throwing around like, oh, these Serbian anarchists, and like, oh, there could be a secret assassin. The Austrian Grand Duke's team is afraid that it's like an assassination plot secretly by the Serbs, I guess. And yeah, initially the middle class, the sailors and the captain are like, well, this is my naval duty. Like, this is what you do when you're at sea. Like, you come upon people in need and you take them on. And so that's the decision I made. And so they will be staying. And they really fight against it. But, the upper class eventually wins out. And even though they're initially going to put all the refugees inside, they are made to sit out on the deck. And we get another kind of visual display of upper and lower class in the dancing scene, where some of the opera singers are, again, up on like a higher balcony looking out over the refugees dancing and sort of making the best of it, essentially. And then they kind of join them. But again, it's not like the Glass moment, because it very much feels like, oh, look at these interesting specimens, and I'm gonna lower myself to join them and dance. And there's even, I think it's one of the conductors, maybe it's somebody who's like, oh, I studied these dances and I actually know the correct way to dance. Mm-hmm. And so he goes down and tries to teach them, and they're paying no mind, which I loved. But yeah, just another huge xenophobic and classist display.
Yeah, there are these great scenes kind of in the midst of this where the upper class tries to isolate, I guess, the lower class, and they do it with these ropes that are really easy to crawl under. It's, there's some good physical comedy as there's this language barrier still, and they're trying to tell them, okay, you have to stay on that side of the rope. And then the guy announcing this crawls under the rope so that everyone follows him under the rope. I thought that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one guy sneaks into the dining room at one point and is like drinking from a champagne bottle. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but also it worked as good visual metaphor. I mean, the things that we put up to separate us are often so silly and so flimsy. And I liked seeing that depicted here.
Eventually, even though the captain stands his ground, what eventually ends up happening is the battleship from the Austro-Hungarian army shows up, and they start exchanging flag signal messages.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, you need to give us the Serbians that you have. And there's a whole back and forth. We're like, we're not going to do it. They're trying to get word from Rome about what they should do, because now it's like an international dispute potentially between a whole new country. And eventually what ends up working, at least temporarily, is the Grand Duke says, tell them I'm here. And tell them what we're doing, which is going to spread the ashes of this famous singer at this specific island. And so they do. And the Austrians are like, yeah, okay, we'll let you do that. We know who she is. We love her too. And I liked that for a couple reasons. One, and I do think like he really does pull off the kind of love letter to opera and music and all this class commentary. Like the balance of it is precarious, but perfect, I think, because that whole sequence is both showing the power and universality of music, the fact that, this war is stopping for a second, or this conflict is stopping for a second because of music, and the fact that this dead famous singer outvalues all these refugees. One woman is more valuable to them than this whole entire group of people. Even if one of the Serbians is a really great singer, which I also liked, that it's like, oh, there's also someone in this group of people that sings like maybe just as well as the dead singer.
Yeah. And we do finally get some unity here. The opera singers start singing about, you're not going to take these people, and they're kind of drowning it out.
Well, I wasn't sure that was actually what happened. Yeah, because specifically the narrator says, I wish I could tell you that we fought back, but then they show the song is "We Won't Give Them Up." is the main lyric of the song they're singing. And that made me think like, yeah, this is how we should have reacted, but that's not how they did react, was kind of how I interpreted.
Fair enough. Yeah. I wasn't sure because of that line, but it did seem real.
Yeah. Well, but that's,
yeah,
I think the entire, like, once we get to the end game where that's happening, there's so much that he's saying, like, we're not sure what exactly happened. So we're seeing a version of the story. I think it's intentionally left up in the air whether that actually happened that way. Every element of it, the bomb throwing, the singing, as many people who like went down with the ship as there were, because like that dude just stayed in his room, and a lot of the singers were still on the boat as the lifeboat left. So who knows? But he said there weren't that many casualties ultimately.
Yeah, and then he says that there are a number of boats that ever made it. So it's, give and take. The big moment of multiple stories, and we're not sure what happened, is this climax where one of the lifeboats, there's a young man on the boat that hurls a handmade bomb into the warship, which starts this series of, this trade of gunfire, and all the ships sink after that. And even while it was happening, I was like, where'd this kid get a bomb? And why would he do this? And then sure enough, the narrator says, and there's another version of this story where he didn't throw it at all, and they threw it themselves to start a conflict. So I like that it could go either way. And I think it's presented in a way that I was suspicious even before they said that. So I think it's pulled off pretty well there.
Yeah, like what are the odds? Well, and I don't remember if it's the same guy that threw the bomb, but there is kind of a coming together of the people, at least I guess two people, because Dorothea, which is like one of the younger female characters, ends up getting on the boat with a guy named Miko because they're in love, and that's that shot that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, no, I think it is him, because that's one of the things the narrator even says is like, would this person that just found love really do this?
Right. And maybe he would. I don't know. Maybe she encouraged it, for all we know.
I do want to ask, during this scene, the narrator says, there's a fourth version of this story that I dare not even tell. Do you have any theories?
Oh, geez. So the three actual versions are the bomb was thrown, and that triggered one cannon to go off. The bomb was thrown, and that triggered all the cannons to go off. What's the third version?
That they threw the bomb themselves so that they could shoot the refugees.
The one thing that comes to mind is, if it's something you can't say, it's the most tragic. So it's like that both ships went down because they both started firing on each other. But yeah, what's your theory?
I mean, that's preferable because he's so disgusted with it. I almost thought that like one of the snobby upper class threw something real quick to get them shot or something like that. But I don't know that we see that in the text. But yeah, because he specifically is like, there's another version of the story that I don't even want to tell you. I was like, oh, how horrible could it be?
Yeah, that would go along with the rest of the commentary that has been happening, that the poor are suffering as a result of the actions of one like rich, selfish person.
Yeah.
I'm into it. Oh, the one thing I do want to talk about that we kind of skipped over is the actual spreading of the ashes sequence, because what ends up happening, they get to this island and they have the other soprano dump out this lady's ashes onto a pillow. And it's both a little ridiculous and quite beautiful as a sequence, because the ashes are out on a pillow, so they're slowly, inevitably getting picked up by the breeze, which is a beautiful way to spread ashes, I have to say. I don't know if that's common. The common depiction I've seen is like just kind of sprinkling them, or the Big Lebowski method. But during that sequence, they play a record that is clearly her singing, and it is, I mean, I believe it. Like, she is an incredible talent, whoever is actually singing that. It's a gorgeous piece. And I loved the kind of wrapping up of this other soprano's storyline, because she immediately, once she starts hearing this voice, she immediately breaks down and is crying the hardest of anyone. And I think I liked that as an ultimate end, because the way that they were framing it, I kind of thought, oh, she's just jealous of this other lady that has died. And that one tiny moment to me said so much of like, no, she actually misses this woman in some way. Like maybe they were friends. There are a lot of potential implications of her reaction during that funeral sequence. The most dramatic way to to spread someone's ashes. That's how I wanna go.
So yeah, we have talked about that the sets are very clearly sets, and I think the water is some sort of plastic. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to see it. But there's a line earlier in the film that I just kind of love and had to say it somewhere. They're looking out at clearly a painted sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman says, "Looks fake, doesn't it?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was hilarious and a good acknowledgement of where this film's sensibilities about its artifice were.
Yeah, the very, very obvious tiny little ship for the big shots of the ship going through the ocean.
Yes.
I liked a lot. I was impressed by it because it was so... The ship itself doesn't look that dinky, and I think like the scale of it is right, but just something gave it away.
The way it's shot just is that of model work. And so the first time that it's done, I was like, oh, okay, cool. There's a model. And I didn't really think much more of it.
It gets worse as it goes on.
Yeah, eventually they get sillier and sillier on the way it's filmed until the warship, that's what I was going to say, has smoke coming out of the stack as part of the model, but the smoke doesn't move. Mm-hmm. So it's very clearly a model. Yeah. And it just gets progressively more obvious, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I did like seeing when, the artifice is removed and we see how the shipwrecking was done and all of that, that seeing like the little crew members with some sort of like burning flare underneath so that it would fly up and the smoke would fly up into the scene above. I liked it. I dug that kind of behind the scenes bit. And yeah, just another thing that he loves to do.
Well, would you recommend the film?
I would. It's been interesting because I feel like I still liked them, but I have maybe not liked some of the real classics like 8.5 and La Dolce Vita quite as much as the mainstream. But this and City of Women, that are a little more middling critically, have just hit so much for me. I don't think this is a perfect film by any means. I think the craft of 8.5 and La Dolce Vita is, of course, almost unmatched. And yet, I had a lot of fun with this. I like the layers of... I'm such a fan of blending genre. I found it to be well done here, but I hear you when you say it didn't quite work. I think, again, we get this lovely sort of pastiche of people like we did in Amarcord. Very different class and type of person, but I was invested. We talked about how that wasn't as effective in orchestra rehearsal. I think I never got like uninvested or bored by anything that was happening here.
Yeah, this does have the same co-writer as Amarcord, so
makes sense.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the thing he's good at.
Yeah, it might be the balancing of political commentary with this ode to opera, and especially with the context that you've now given me about how Fellini didn't used to like it. What an edgelord. He's like, I don't like opera, I like clowns. Anyway.
What level of hipster is that?
Yeah, he's in a league of his own, I think. But he came around to it. I get it. I like mainstream things too sometimes. But I get that urge to be like, people like this, so I'm not going to like it. It doesn't come from growing up in fascist Italy, though, like it does for him. Anyway, I would recommend it. I really liked it. I think it's another one of those films that is great, unfortunately, to view in the times that we're in. And
sure,
the ending is the perfect button. Like, the ending really sold it for me. He stuck that landing with that rhino in the lifeboat. What about you? I really don't know. Would you recommend this film?
I would, but it's definitely not as high as your recommendation. I do think, yeah, it really comes together. The last chunk of this film, from basically the time that the bomb is thrown onward, is just great. The shots of the ship going down, There's one shot where water has filled this hallway and suitcases are kind of floating, and like that was already great. And then these two birds come in and start like intermingling and just loving each other despite that. And that shot is peak. But I think a lot of the stuff leading up to it doesn't work as well for me. And yeah, we've talked about it at this point, but I think the tone kind of clashed more than meshed. But that also very well could have been colored by a viewing where I expected a further farce and it leaned away from that. So I would like to revisit this, see if it grows on me. I think it would. I think it would grow on me because I think once you kind of know what this whole thing is, it's pretty impressive and there is absolute undeniable craft. But as it stands, light recommendation. I greatly appreciate it. Currently not in love with it. That's okay.
Wow.
Well, if you agree or disagree with anything we've said here, you can write to us, retrospectivecinepodcast@gmail.com. If you have been sticking with us and you like us and you care about us and you want us to succeed, you can give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on.
And follow us.
And follow us, yeah. All the things.
All the things.
Yeah, or just send some note on something. Slide into the Instagram DMs. Just let us know you're here. Speaking of that,
yeah, that'd be fun.
we have that sounded loaded. You have to stick to movies.
Yeah.
For us to respond.
How do they slide into the DMs?
We have an Instagram. We have a TikTok at retro_sin, CIN. You can also find us on Letterboxd. I'm at Ryan Loves Film.
I'm at Annie Morell. Next week, it's my girl. She's back. Julieta Messina in a film called Ginger and Fred. Oh my God, Mastrioni's in this one too.
It's the first time that his two muses have been in the same film. I'm pretty excited to see what happens.
That's so cool.
And I guess the only time.
I'm excited. I hope it's good. But in the meantime, whether you're checking out I Love Boosters, which honestly everybody should.
Yeah, I gotta get around to it.
Ooh, yeah, you do. It's insane, is all I will say. Whether you're watching that, Ginger and Fred, you're taking my heavy recommendation for And the Ship Sails On, or, Ryan's shrug of a recommendation. Happy watching. What's a nautical term for happy? Is there a nautical term?
Watching off the port bow.